Hello there, and welcome everyone to the Trusted Advisor Show. My name is Rob Jacomen. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Ryan Staton, our co-host, and we have a very, very special episode for you today. We are super excited, blessed, and honored to have Xander Cruz, who is on our show today. He's with CR Maryland. Man, you guys are in for a real treat because they have an amazing story. He's one of the partners. He's going to be able to tell you his story, but basically these guys are like a full service real estate investment company and basically they have such a unique model and it's such a great story. We wanted to have Xander on the show to really inspire everyone who might want to learn more about this industry and this market, and also hear just a great story all around of entrepreneurship and success. And so Xander, I know you're I want to welcome you to the show. And I know you probably have had your share of successes and failures and learning from that experience. But, we just right now, and we want to learn more about that because it's part of your journey. It's part of your success story. But as we're launching into this and we want to dive in, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan because I love the way Ryan starts off all of our episodes now with his power question. So Ryan, it's turn over to you.
Yeah. So today, thank you first of all for being here. Obviously we've talked a lot offline about your story, and I've been, kind of along for the ride a little bit with your professional journey. But today we're going to talk a lot about what you guys do in the professional world. But one of the things that we like to do is give some context to who our guests are as human beings. So the first question we always lead off with is, tell us something interesting about yourself that would not show up in your professional bio.
Thank you both for having me. I love to get people with this because they might, when they read my name, know it, but if you look at me, you probably wouldn't know it. Something interesting about me is I'm half Puerto Rican. So my father's family, his parents were actually born in Puerto Rico and moved to New York when they were young. So my father is 100% Puerto Rican and I'm 50%. It's October now. Most of my tan is already gone, but some of my family is tan year round. So that's an interesting tidbit for you.
And do you speak Spanish?
Oh, I know a couple words.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that.
I knew that. Yeah. No, thank you for that. And so, just kind of starting to kick off the conversation for those that are out there listening, tell us a little bit about your background professionally in real estate, how you got started, and kind of give us some context about your journey from day one to where you are today.
Yeah, so I kind of enjoy telling this story because it's such a winding road. But I went to West Virginia University for undergrad. I graduated with a degree in criminology, of all things, which in hindsight I probably wouldn't pick that degree again. But I got home in late 2011. At the time, the job market here was still not great. We really hadn't launched back from those 2008 days. So my parents were listing their house for sale with a local broker up in Harford County. And she, at the time, which I didn't realize, was looking to hire an assistant. I also didn't know that she had been through many assistants over the years. It's not a position where people last very long. So I was hired. I started pretty quickly out of college in a role that was heavy admin. Again, truly being an assistant. Fortunately, as part of that, I had to get my real estate license. And that's how it started. So it was great because I learned a lot. I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of deals and people. I was instantly hooked on real estate because there's a lot of energy. There's a very fast pace. Every day is different. At the same time, I learned that I hate admin work and I'm really not cut out for that position at all. But I actually did it for a year, believe it or not. And again, I learned a ton and was able to build a foundation that I could then leave that position and just go into full-time residential real estate as an agent. So that's kind of phase two of my career. I was doing this for probably about a year and a half to 2 years, when at the end of that time is when I got introduced to my current business partner, and we began working together. So when we first met, it wasn't a partnership relationship yet. I was really more boots on the ground for the beginning of CR Maryland's operation. And at that time, it was myself, Craig, who is the owner and my partner, and one project manager. And we were really just starting from the ground up. So that was about 2014, I would say. And that leads us all the way to today, where I'm a partner. We're a company of 27 plus employees and team members. We've renovated well over 1,000 homes in Baltimore. We've done a lot of different deals of different kinds. We manage a portfolio of 300 properties that we own. And then also now we're expanding our property management to other properties that we sell to other people. So I know I just touched on a lot of things that you're going to dig deeper on, but that was the winding road of how I got here. And that's the abbreviated version. So I try to keep it short.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So, going through that journey, what would you say as a new real estate agent starting out, coming from, a criminal, I guess, an educational background in criminal justice and moving into the real estate world? What was your biggest challenge in making that transition?
I tell people the hardest part in starting in real estate, and I know this is true in a lot of industries like financial advising, the hardest part is just getting started. So I was very fortunate that I was offered a position that had steady income for that first year. And being young, I didn't really have much to lose, of course. So persistence is really the biggest lesson out of all that. I tell people when you start in that first year, and even probably through the second year, you're going to hit a wall, and you're going to hit it more than once, where you're going to want to quit and do something else. And you're like, it's just not working out. Maybe I wasn't meant to do this. I almost quit several times, and I'm really fortunate that I didn't. And at one point, my dad talked me out of quitting and said, just keep riding it out, see what happens. And again, here I am almost 10 years later. I'm really glad that I didn't quit, because it's really worked out well for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, let's, I guess, moving on into the next phase, just kind of expanding on your story a little bit. So, starting out with CR Maryland, talk a little bit about evolution of not just, the types of transactions that you guys are doing, but how you've grown as a company since you really started your operation here in 2014.
Yeah, we've gone through what I would say are several major revolutions in terms of what our primary focus is, all falling under residential real estate investing. But inside of that world, there's a lot of different niches and a lot of different things that people do. So in the beginning, we did what people on TV do, which is fix and flip. So you buy a house, you renovate it, and then you sell it to a homeowner that's going to move in. And that was our primary focus for the first several years. And we actually got it to a really high level. At our peak, we were doing over 100 homes a year under this model. And that was it. That was our singular primary focus. So everything revolved around buying and renovating and selling. The second, or I guess this would be the first evolution, came about in, don't quote me on the year, let's say 2016, I think it was. We had a house that we were struggling to sell, and we called the bank and we said, what would it look like if we made this a rental property? Like, how would you guys finance it? They said, well, no big deal. We'll give you 80% of the value of the house. So we played with the numbers and we looked at it and we're like, that's pretty cool. We can effectively have no cash in the deal. We're going to have a mortgage that gets all of our cash back out. It's like one big refi. And then on top of that, the rent that it's worth is more than covering the mortgage. We're going to be cash flow positive on it each month. So we're sitting there scratching our heads, and we called the bank back and we said, how many more of these deals can we do? And the bank, the vice president of the bank actually is who we were talking to. It was a small bank out of Pennsylvania. He goes, these deals are great. It's a fully renovated house, 80% of value. We can do these all day. It's unlimited. So we said, okay. We hear unlimited. We're like, we're ready to roll. So next thing you know, we go out and buy 10 more. And we're renovating them, and we start firing off mortgage requests to the bank. And he calls about the back, and he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, how do you have 10 of these? What are you up to? And we're like, well, we love the model. We know that we can scale it. We can buy and renovate a bunch of these. They make money and it's unlimited. Like you said that. And he goes, okay, I probably shouldn't have told you unlimited. Like it's not unlimited, especially not for our bank. So, but the idea now was born, right? So we have a great market for rentals. They cash flow really well. And back then it was very easy to go buy these properties, which our main focus is townhomes. They are rock solid homes. They, of course, when we buy them, need a lot of work, but they're in steady areas and they rent very well. So we ended up, of course, finding more local banks to finance more of these deals. And then we started laying out some really lofty goals on how many of these properties we would buy and renovate. So we went from 1 by mistake to 10 by design to last year in 2019, we hit our goal, which was 300 properties that we had bought and renovated and owned. And as part of that, as we got to probably house number 7, we realized, okay, it's really fun to buy them. Renovating them is sort of fun. Leasing them is not half bad, but that's where the trouble starts. Then you got to manage them. And you got to make sure you have the proper registrations and the certificates, and it goes to the county, and there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So Craig and I really like buying homes. We don't really love property managing. So that's where another, I guess, evolution happened. We recruited Craig's son, Brock, who Ryan knows very well, to come back and run the operations and start a property management company. Because if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We need to manage it right. We can't place bad tenants. We need to handle maintenance issues. We need to handle collections properly. We need to make sure we're totally compliant with the local rules. It's a business within itself. So, and if we're going to scale, it has to be tight. So that's phase 2 of the evolution. And again, that then it became the main focus of our business. So we still did some fix and flip, but we dramatically scaled it down because a lot of our time and energy was going to building this rental portfolio. So that led us to the next evolution, which really happened last year, where we were meeting our goal of how many properties we would personally have and own. And we're like, well, what are we going to do now? And the market has evolved a lot too over this time. I didn't even really touch on that, but the game has changed a lot. The competition is crazy. Not just here, it's throughout the country, the amount of investors there are and people that want to invest in real estate. Everybody wants to. I mean, walk down the street, do you want to own real estate? Yeah, of course. And so that's the world that we're in now. So the point of all that was we reached our goal. We have a full operation set up to continue buying and renovating properties, but we don't want to buy any more for ourselves. What do? A light bulb clicked. Somebody said, have you heard of turnkey? We said, no. What is turnkey? Turnkey means that you provide renovated rental properties to other people that will buy them from you. So you have no cash in the deal. It's just like a refi, except you're not on the hook because now somebody else owns it. They get a good deal because it's a fully renovated house. It's fully rented. It's fully managed. All they have to do is pay for it and then start collecting profit each month. But they don't even have to collect the profit. We collect it for them and send it to them. And there's a huge market for it. It's a kind of a quiet market. It's not what you see on TV. It's not as sexy as flipping a house and all the drama involved. And it's not, you're not going to hit home run profits, right? You're never going to make $50,000 in a year off of one rental property, but it's very steady and predictable. So that was last year. Last year, we ended up selling, I think the number was 7 properties this way. We were just getting started, learning the model, meeting people throughout the country that would buy these homes or have people that would buy these homes, to now where we are in October of 2020. This year in 2020, we'll sell over 120 of these properties. And now that we've figured out the model and we have connected with people all over the country, we actually have a waiting list of buyers now. In 2021, our goal and what we project to do is 180 of these homes. So it's a big evolution going from never doing a turnkey to doing a substantial amount. And again, previously we were buying a ton of properties to renovate as rentals for ourselves. So it's not like a totally different ball game altogether. It's we're buying the same properties, we're renovating them the same way. It's just a different exit strategy at the end for us. But now it's an opportunity for somebody else to invest here that otherwise they probably never would. So it's been really fun. We meet a lot of awesome people, and we're actually really the only turnkey provider in Baltimore. So it sounds like we have no competition, but that's not true. Most buyers that we talk to are shopping here, but they're also shopping 2 to 3 other markets throughout the country as well. So our competition is on the national scale. It's not really locally. We're still competing with investors locally, though, to buy homes, because there's only so many homes in Baltimore that you can buy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Xander, let me ask you a question. You guys have a fascinating business model. Like it is just you talking in the last few minutes, you can really see an evolution of how you guys have evolved your model and adapted to whether it be technology or changes in the marketplace or just, finding or stumbling across an opportunity. So my question for you is, it can be pretty intimidating. Like one of the things we like to tout on the show is really adding value to our listeners and viewers, and also some inspiration, because you have a really inspiring story. I'm sure that throughout evolution, it wasn't always easy. I'm sure you hit stumbling blocks. I'm sure you hit challenges. If you don't mind sharing some of the challenges that you guys experienced along the journey, along the way, where maybe it just seemed insurmountable, or it's because it can be pretty intimidating to someone who's just starting off or is just starting out a new business, to hear where you guys are now. And because they're thinking, wow, I could never do that. But one of the things we want to do is give people inspiration that, hey, listen, you can start with an idea. You can start with a concept, and you can actually do this. You can start a business and be successful. It's not going to be easy, but there's definitely a path, and success always leaves clues. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced, and some of those milestones that you guys achieved, success-wise over those years.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because sometimes we look at people and we look at their Instagram profile and we're like, man, that guy's awesome. He's got it figured out. The life is beautiful, booming business. That's amazing. Why can't I have that?
Fancy cars, they see the fancy cars and the Lamborghini.
The story I just told is great. But what I didn't say, and what I can certainly talk about now, is oh my God, the list of issues and problems and struggles along the way. I mean, we could talk about it for 10 hours easily. And some of it's common stuff, right? Like hiring the wrong person and putting people in the wrong seat, and how much damage that can cause, and how much potential profit can be lost. I can talk about an infamous deal that I bought, Ellendale. Craig will ask Craig about Ellendale. You'll probably see his facial expression change. We look on this one deal, which dragged out over a year and a half. We lost over $100,000. I mean, that can put a lot of people out of business altogether. And we're very fortunate that it didn't. So there's a day I can remember one of our banks called that we were buying rental properties, planning to finance with them. And they said, hey, bad news, the bank just sold and we're cutting you off, no more rental financing. Things like that. There's just so many, it's almost endless. And I say it with a smile, it's going to happen, right? So what I say to people is, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid of the challenges that are going to come, because it's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. The biggest thing is just getting started. If you never start, you'll never get to that point. But then also on that note, real estate is very, recreatable. I'm not sure it's a word, but it's easy to recreate what other people are doing. You don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. Go listen to what other people are doing. Find people that are successful in it and talk to them, because they'll probably prevent you from half the mistakes that you're going to make, because they've already made them. And that's true for us too. We've learned a lot, but when we really got to the next level was when we got connected to other people in the country that were already doing what we were about to do, and they said, look, you can do this, X, Y, and Z, and it'll put you here. And that's true for lead generation. That's true for rental models. That's true for renovations. Like every aspect in this business, other people are doing it at a really high level already, and they're more than willing to share what they're doing. So that's inside of the podcast world. That's all over the place that you can find this information about real estate. So hopefully that was helpful.
No, it's fantastic. I'm actually in a transition period myself. So I'm going through some of the same thought process and challenges in going off and starting my own thing. And, one of the things, and Ryan knows this, the best way to learn what not to do or what to do is to not only look back in your history and your track record of success, but also talking to other successful business owners and saying, who are maybe in your industry and outside of your industry, because you can learn so much from talking to people outside. If you stay only in your bubble, you're only going to know what you don't know, right? And you're only going to stay in that bubble. Whereas if you're, I'm spending a lot of my time talking with, carrier underwriters and getting, picking their brain and finding out, hey, what are other agents doing? What are other commercial insurance agencies working on? What are kinds of, where's the trend in the marketplace? Yeah. And I think when you glean that experience and you glean that knowledge, I think it shortens not only the learning curve, but your ability to help achieve your goals that you're setting for yourself. That might be pretty lofty, but it's anything's possible when you have that experience.
Absolutely. And then the cool thing is eventually somebody comes to you to ask you the same questions and you can share the same thing. So it becomes full circle. And some people think that by sharing what we do or, giving away trade secrets, we're helping our competitors, but we don't even view it that way. Honestly, if we help another investor in Baltimore become better, it's better for all of us because Baltimore becomes better. So it's still a win-win.
Right. That's 100%.
It's really how we think of it.
It's funny because that's kind of the reason why we even started this podcast is that, Rob and I come from industries that are, I guess you could say, traditional, and without getting too, overly controversial about it, but for lack of a better phrase, like run by a bunch of old white dudes that just like don't, and that might be controversial to say, but the reality, it is what it is. Facts are facts. And people are not willing to change. This whole concept of my first job and in my industry, the number one thing they pounded into your head was the firm has intellectual capital. And if they want to work with us, that's the value that we bring. And we don't share it with anyone except people that do business with us. And I always looked at that as like this kind of like, in the age of the internet and just like things that are out there, so much information and the world moves so fast, it's impossible for you to keep trade secrets anymore. I mean, it's like, it's not, you can do it to a certain extent, but at the same time, like you said, making our communities better and our industries better only works to our advantage. And so we're big believers in that. And that's kind of why we like to have guests like you and like some of our other guests on the show, because we feel like there's a community out there that believes that. And it's kind of almost not necessarily the next generation by age per se, but the next generation of business and just the way business is done. And so it's interesting that, that you guys have taken that approach. And speaking of approach, I wanted to segue and kind of back up to something that you said before, that the turnkey aspect of your business is kind of a silent portion or a silent piece of the industry. It's not things that you hear about on TV. It's not the sexy real estate investment per se. How did you take that business from 7 homes last year to 120 and projecting 180 next year? And how are you getting those buyers and those customers in your pipeline to the point where you have a waiting list now?
Yeah, a few things. One is, and this is going to sound corny, but it's focus. So we really had to shift our focus and lay out the goal and then kind of work backwards. Like, okay, if you're going to sell 100 properties, you're going to need potentially not 100 buyers because some people will buy more than one, but you're going to need a large amount of buyers or potential buyers. Because if you talk to 10 potential buyers, maybe only 5 of them want to work with you for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. So one of the focuses that we had to work through was finding networks that are in this space and connecting with them. So the biggest network that we work with, I literally picked up the phone, called the 1-800 number. I got connected to one of their sales guys who happened to pick up the phone. He also happens to be one of their best salespeople because he's aggressive and will pick up the phone. And I just introduced myself. I said, this is what we're doing. Here's what we have. Like, who do I need to talk to? And he's like, well, first and foremost, I love everything that you said. Like, I can sell your product. Just know that. So I need to connect you to Kathy over here. Kathy's going to have to put you through our onboarding process and vetting and all that. But once you're approved, like, save my number because I'm going to sell your stuff. So just off of that phone call, we have sold probably 60 properties. Easy. Could be more than that. And I mean, 60 properties, if you do the math, is a huge chunk of gross profit. So, and it allows the pipeline to keep moving. So at the beginning, it was taking us 7 to 14 days to sell a property. Again, because we really had no base of buyers at that point. We had no relationships. Now, and for the past probably 5 months at least, I sell everything the day that I can sell it. So when I release a property that we say, okay, it's done, we can sell to a buyer, it typically sells the exact same day. So it's changed that much. And a lot of it just has to do with that network now. So we work with 2 big networks, and then we do some marketing of our own to just try to match up with people out there in the world that have discovered turnkey and they're looking for opportunities to buy that makes sense. So just like everything else in the world, there's a lot of options, and no one option is perfect for anybody. There's pros and cons to it. So in our market, the pro would be it's great cash flow. The properties are fully renovated. I would consider us a pro because we're going to be the manager of the property after they buy it. But a con would be our prices are a little bit higher than other markets. So our properties tend to cost between $150,000 and $200,000. There's other markets in the country where people can buy a home for $100,000, but it might not. It might have a third-party manager, so they might be buying it from the provider, who then has to hand them off to another property management company that has no real vested interest in the deal. So there's a lot of variables to each market and each deal, I guess you could say. But going back to your question, our focus in that evolution that we talked about, where look, turnkey is going to be 80% of our business. We got to spend 80% of our time here and go through each aspect of it. So we need to figure out and make sure that we're staffed properly to buy them, renovate them, sell them, and manage them. And each part of the puzzle, we have to spend time on making sure it's efficient and we have the people in place.
So Xander, under that model, that model is so unique because it combines, I feel like, and I'm not an expert in real estate. I don't know anything about this is the first time I'm hearing about your model, but what I'm getting from it is it kind of combines all of the expertise that you guys have built over the last, since you started the business, and like actually packages it up into what you're calling turnkey. So you are doing all the things that you would normally do when flipping a property, but you guys are actually then selling that asset to somebody who's viewing it as an asset to invest in for themselves. So maybe instead of investing in the stock market or something else, this is perfectly designed for someone who wants to invest in a piece of property without having to do all the work that's involved in all these glamorous guys on TV who are flipping houses and then turning it into a rental property. You're actually taking care of all that stuff on the front end for someone to then be able to invest in a real asset that produces cash flow and obviously a return on their investment. And obviously you're not making any guarantees, but that becomes an asset that they can utilize, whether it's to sell it at some point or continue to just generating that cash flow. And then you guys also then help them manage all that stuff. Am I seeing it pretty Is that kind of it? In a nutshell?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the value proposition that we bring, right? Because we have expertise in each of these fields. Yeah, our ideal profile is typically 30 to 60. They're a professional of some kind. It could be anything, a doctor, an engineer, somebody in technology software. It's sometimes not even that. I have firefighters, I have police officers. It's people that have very steady income. They work full time. Usually they have a family and they have 401ks. They have investments in the stock market. They have a retirement account. And despite all that, they have some extra capital. And they're like, I want to invest. I know real estate is a great investment, but I don't know how to do it. I work full time. How am I going to find a house to buy? And then how am I going to renovate it? And then how the heck am I going to rent it and manage it? Like I don't have time for that. Like I work 50 hours a week. Yep. So that's where turnkey is the perfect fit for people because they're well qualified. They have money to invest. They're already diversified. And now they want to diversify again and get into the real estate game without having to do it full time. So it's really, people call it passive income and under this model because it is. It's the most passive, well, I shouldn't say that. It's one of the most passive ways that you can invest in real estate. So that is why people flock to us. And there's a lot of people like this around the country and even locally that they hear it and they love it and it makes sense.
It's an awesome model.
Thank you.
Yep. Ryan?
No, I mean, I think that, what you're saying, kind of what you just finished with summarizes, kind of what you guys are doing to a T. I mean, from my perspective in our world, and being a licensed financial advisor, we have these conversations with clients all the time about where to invest money, what should we be doing with excess capital. You mentioned some of those accounts that are kind of specific to our world, but one of the biggest drawbacks to investing in real estate is that it's a line item on a tax return as, I'll say, passive income in quotations, but it's not always passive, right? And the same thing is true in the traditional, stock market world, for example. There are forms of income that can be derived from investing in other companies. And the hardest part of that is how passive is that investment? And so what I'm hearing you say is some of the aspects of investing in rental real estate, which are attractive to people, things like cash flow. There's obviously tax advantages to that too, depending on circumstances. And you're taking all of that and kind of bundling into one and saying, we're actually going to make it passive for you. All you have to do is have the money to be able to participate. So that is a different point of view. It's a different model. And it's certainly something that, there's other ways to do that, but in our world, specifically, there's ways to do that. But being able to do it in a way that I think is attractive from the feedback that we've gotten from other clients and partners and other folks, that being able to do it in that way is unique. And that's kind of a politically correct answer without getting myself in trouble of saying it. Is that it's a unique process, it's a unique model, and that's why I wanted to share it. And it's also just a unique story, starting from 2000. I mean, in reality, Rob talked a lot about people that are worried about starting businesses or they're afraid. And there's two sides to starting a business. There's obviously the positives and the negatives, but going from 2014 being in a completely different model to today, in a relatively short period of time, when we talk about business cycles, to creating, one of the things that you said is that I think summarizes this whole thing is one mistake becomes a design, becomes a business. I think that's a really powerful way to summarize this. And those are your words, not mine, obviously, but I think it really brings into focus who you guys are and what you're doing for everyone that's listening out there and wants to know, what opportunities exist for me out there. And sometimes mistakes that you make or things that don't work out the way you planned end up actually transitioning your business into a model that is more profitable than what you may have intended to start off doing. So, I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's tons of value to be had for anyone out there who's, whether they're in real estate and any other profession, to understand just like business and how you can evolve and how you can adapt to the world that you're in and still be a pretty strong, profitable business, even through a global pandemic. So.
Sure.
100%. They always say, the first thing you do is you figure out how to solve a problem in the marketplace, and then provide a solution to that problem. And you guys are just the epitomize that, because just like you said, Xander, you're taking something where it would normally be a huge undertaking and headache or a problem for someone, and providing a turnkey solution. And that's exactly the model. I love it. And listen, as we're starting to come to we're landing the plane here. All this is fantastic, Xander. We'd love to have you guys on again. Maybe we bring your other partners on with you and do another podcast, because there's so much value and knowledge and learning. We could go to so many different areas that we want to make sure we leave it open for future episodes. But you have a phenomenal story. And what I urge everyone who's listening and watching today is, if you found value in all of this, we would love to have your support, and consider subscribing to our podcast. And because we're going to continue providing value to you. That's what we care most about, is that all the things that we're doing, the reason why, our big why we do this is exactly that, is to provide value and to someone else and make a positive impact. So that being said, Xander, as we're coming to a close, I love asking, this is my final question to you, is, let's say, projecting forward, you're sitting there in your rocking chair, looking back on your life, and you're retired by now, and you're just looking at, it's like a movie reel, and you're looking back on all the experiences and the journey that you had. What would you like people to remember you by? In other words, what would you like to be that you leave your legacy?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that right here, because we spent a lot of this call or interview podcast, what we're going to call it, talking about we're very business oriented. We're talking about the model and the evolution and deals and that end of it, which is all awesome stuff. But the why is actually why we do all of this, and also what I hope that I can look back on as an old man, hopefully with a full head of hair, that it happened. So our why, and we actually have this spelled out in neater terms that I'm going to say, but our why is that we want to improve our community through what we do in real estate. And that's done in a lot of different ways, but we could just look at one individual deal. We buy a house from a seller, maybe they inherited a family member's house that passed away, and the house is falling apart, needs all kinds of work. They sell it to us. We've solved their problem. We've given them a solution. We then go through the process of investing a lot of time and money to renovate this house, and to renovate it right with all the proper permits. We make it lifetime lead free. We're bringing everything to today's standards. So we've now impacted that street, because people come up to our construction managers all the time, especially when the house is finishing. They're like, wow, thank you. That thing was an eyesore for years. There's trash in the yard. The window was broken. I couldn't stand to walk by it. And now it's one of the nicest homes on the street. I'm really thankful. That happens all the time. So we're impacting that individual street and the neighbors. They're going to thank us again when we sell the house, because now it went from a really low sale price to a much higher sale price. It helps the values in the neighborhood, which then helps the market overall. And then last but not least, we're providing a top quality renovated house to a tenant. And again, that sounds transactional, but housing is very personal. People want to live in a nice, safe house. They don't want, a lot of people do, unfortunately, here and in other parts of the country. They live in really less than ideal living conditions, and houses that have leaks and mold and all kinds of issues, lead paint, don't even get me started on that. So we're going to provide the highest quality house. And then on top of that, we're going to treat them properly as a person. So if there's an issue, we're going to respond and take care of it. You hear horror stories all the time about slumlords, right? We all know what slumlords are, and they're everywhere. We're not interested in that. We want to raise the bar on how property management is handled. And then the last part of it, of course, is we have an investor from somewhere else, or it could be from here, that now owns this property, and it impacts them too, because they're getting a return on their money, which that could impact their family. It could impact their style of life. A lot of our owners use that money to give back. And then that's also part of what we do with our profits is give back. So I think our model, what I love about our model, what gives us a lot of energy is that it can impact so many people along the way. And overall, it helps improve our community. So I hope that when I look back, we will have done this for a really long time. And numbers are cool. To say you did hundreds of homes or thousands of homes, that's really cool. But it's the people that we touch along the way and hopefully improving their lives. That's what it's all about to me. So if I can look back and know that I was a part of that, I'm going to feel good about it.
Amen to that, man. I mean, you said it all. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a really beautiful thing. And that's
Is that
your
a tear
why.
I see there, Rob?
Yeah. It's, no, it really is. It's fantastic. It's the reason, I think just as we're wrapping up, business sometimes gets such a bad rap for maybe not doing things according to like a why, like that. That is such a compelling why you do something. You're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it. Of course, you want to take care of your family, but you're doing it for a bigger mission and a bigger purpose. And that to me means everything. So I love your story, Xander. I'd love to have you back on again. Ryan, thank you for introducing Xander to our community and our tribe that we're trying to create as well. Our goal is to build a community of truly, trusted advisors, relationships with other businesses, adding value to people's lives. That's what we're all about. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. And Ryan and Xander, we'll see you guys again on a future episode, and everyone can stay tuned for some more future hot topics. So thanks, guys.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Awesome.